Welcome to Week in Horror.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
The podcast that deep dives all the films you love.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
The week they dropped in horror history.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
With your horror hosts, JL.
When a shirtless Sam Elliott with no mustache takes out an alligator with an oar, that's the kind of movie I'm looking for.
Eugene.
And we're just casually just like, yeah, so this is probably the best way to go, light someone on fire with gasoline.
Alex.
It would not be an original lineup if I didn't have fucking technical difficulty.
Johnny O.
Now, it's not an Amityville, or wherever it's Amityville.
And Aaron.
They got manure to work with and nothing grew from it.
News, trailers, trivia, special guests, and more.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Live show every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central at youtube.com/weekinhorror.
Welcome to prime time, bitch!
And wherever you listen to podcasts.
One by one, we will take you.
Week in Horror. Stay scared.
Welcome, horror fans. It's Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central Time, and that means it's time for another episode of the Week in Horror podcast. The only podcast that's drawing a line in the fucking sand. Here, do not read the Latin. Don't. And if you, dear horror fanatic, are listening to us at the top of the week, remember, we do this live every Wednesday right here on YouTube. Hang out and see all the stuff our editor doesn't want you to see. Yes, all the secret stuff. And this week, we're covering select horror films released April 23rd through April 29th. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm Eugene, and with me tonight is JL.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Good to see everybody. Oh, gotta love it. Oh, my dog is barking in the background.
Oh, the dogs want to be a part of it too. They're like, we're
apparently,
here.
Apparently he does. He's excited. Well, the weather's a little wild up here in Oklahoma. So, and things are blustery and probably knocking around out there. We just got his attention. But good to see everyone. So great to see everybody here in the live chat. As a matter of fact, before we dive into stuff tonight, let's get up that podcast banner. Oh, get up that Patreon banner. Those are all the amazing individuals who are part of our Patreon who help to make this show possible. Every single person down there. We love you all so much. Thank you so much for doing that. We appreciate it. We couldn't do this show without any of you. We have so many cool things coming up behind the scenes that here we are, but just past the midway point in season 4. And we have film productions that are coming up, and we cannot wait to show like behind the scenes video, interviews, and of course, production photos, all kinds of stuff. So if you are a member of the Week in Horror Patreon, then you will get access to all that cool stuff that gets released via patreon.com/weekinhorror. You get see all the cool stuff that you guys helped us to make here at the podcast. Started out as a little show, and now it's full on production entity, which is pretty badass.
Yes,
so.
Thank you so much. We could not do it without your support, and we will bring you big things and bigger things, and it's going to be awesome.
Yes, because not just to mention that, not just behind the scenes stuff, but when this stuff like comes out, you guys will get to see it, probably before anybody else, because you have that kind of access. You help to make it happen. So it's, only fair that you see the fruits of your labor, to see all the great gory slashery stuff that we get to put on camera. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be so cool. All right, but before we dive in, let's see who we've got in the live chat tonight. I see Raven Darkstar there. Good to see you, Raven. Travis Brown as well. Good to see you. Case Cooper's here. Says, well met. I do look forward to deep philosophical thoughts and the other gems every Wednesday, not to mention the turd polishing. Thank you so much, Casey.
There is some turd polishing tonight.
There's going to be a little bit of turd polishing tonight. There will be. Doctor Who Design is here. Good to see you, Doctor Who. Sarcasm is here. Good to see you, Sarcasm. Sally Skeleton as well. Says, hello, folks. Good to see you, Sally. Thanks so much for hanging out tonight. Denova28 is here. Good to see you, Denova. Says, hola, mi nerd migos. Good to see you, bud. Appreciate you being here. Let me see. Sarcasm says, after watching less than half of My Demon Lover, I began to question why I do this to myself. We are almost eight. Well, I think we're like over 700 movies in. We stopped asking that question a long time ago.
You just accept it at a point.
Just accept it. It's just the way it's what it's become. What are you gonna do? Brian Powell, good to see you this evening. Angel Rivera as well. What up? What up? Ghouls and girls, good to see you, Angel. Thanks so much for being here. And I see as well Jeremy Duncan says, "Dang it, couldn't finish watching my Louder with Crowder." LOL. That's okay. We're a better show. Far more entertaining.
Yes.
But good to see you, bud. Thanks so much for being here. Sarcasm says, creeping ever closer to those magical 1,000 subs. We are so close. We're literally like 120 something away. Last I checked, from 1,000 subs on YouTube. So it'd be pretty cool if we can hit that very soon. I think that would be it's a good milestone that we want to cross. Vera Lucia Campos is here. Good to see you. Says good evening. Thank you so much for being here. Bobby Williams Will says, hey y'all, good to see you, Bobby. Thanks so much for hanging out. Cindy Johnson is here. Good evening, Cindy. Thanks so much for being here as well. Oh, Casey Cooper says we are 125 away. Fan-friggin-tastic.
Almost.
Absolutely. Rave Darkster says June 3rd, my town is doing its first Pride Feast or Pride Fest. Because there's a difference. There is a difference, sir. Fest. Okay.
Fest. Okay, Fest.
Okay. Excellent. That's excellent news. Fantastic. Congratulations. That is pretty cool. Jeremy Duggan says, worst horror movie ever was Showgirls. Yes, absolutely terrifying. Good to see you, Jeremy. Thanks so much for being here. Oh, we got a few new names here. Thanks so much for hanging out and all the awesome regulars that pop in. So first off, and this is going to be the kind of the beginning of a small discussion, and I want to get the people in live chats, kind of like opinions on this as well as yours. So there's a new movie coming out in August. A new horror movie coming out in August. Comes out August 11th, called The Last Voyage of the Demeter. Okay,
and I remember we talked about it, and I thought about watching it ahead of time just to see, because a lot of times that's what I do. But for this one, and probably for a lot of these others, when we start showing new trailers, I actually don't want to watch it because I want my gut reaction that y'all can capture and see, and we can discuss and talk about it. So I haven't seen the trailer yet.
You haven't watched the trailer?
I have not watched the trailer. So this is going to be my reaction live.
Okay. So here we go. So before we dive into this little kind of discussion that I want to have regarding some upcoming stuff in the horror genre, is that we have The Last Voyage of the Demeter. So if you haven't seen this trailer yet, here it is. Oh, damn.
The Demeter, on charter from Romania to London.
I love
shipping
Liam
private
Cunningham
crates.
in there. It's amazing.
Contents unknown. Out at sea with no land in sight.
This here is Clemens. He's a doctor.
You dress like a learned man. University of Cambridge? I know my way around the boat.
Our charter has agreed to pay a bonus for timely arrival in London.
And the production, this looks amazing.
This here is Huckleberry. We don't come with like this to give the ewes clear.
Demeter's a fine boat, no doubt.
Something ripped apart the animals.
All the livestock? This looks like a bite. Search the ship. Everywhere. Evil is on board. Powerful evil.
Smashing Pumpkins.
In the night, it drinks our blood. He is here. We call him Dracula.
He's coming!
Did you see the size of that bloody thing?
I'm gonna kill the cursed thing.
He is on this ship, which means that we will never leave it.
The devil is real.
May God have mercy on us all.
Okay.
All right. Oh, so what do you think?
Gut reaction. So the things that caught my eye initially was production value. You don't get a lot of horror movies on like clipper ships or schooners. That style of ship. It's a period piece film. Looks like set into like maybe early mid 1800s.
Right.
And like I was like, that's awesome. And then the thought of a creature being released reminds me a lot of like Alien, where you have nowhere to go. You're just stuck on those ships aren't that big, and there's only so many hiding places. And if you hide for too long, you still have to run the ship. So I was like, okay, this is intriguing. It had me until it said Dracula. And I was like, oh, really?
Okay, so are you not familiar with the story, The Last Voyage of the Demeter? What the story that's behind this?
No, I'm not familiar with the story.
Okay, so in Bram Stoker's Dracula, there was one chapter that was dedicated to the captain's log of when the Demeter went from Transylvania to where Dracula's home country to England is where Dracula was moving over. So it's set before the events that take place in like Bram Stoker's Dracula when he encounters Mina and Jonathan Harker and Van Helsing and all that stuff. So this is before any of that. And so it's the story of what happened on the ship. Now, in Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Demeter came into port as a ghost ship. So it arrived in port, and no bodies were found. No one knows what happened. And they found the captain's log, and the captain's log makes up one chapter of the book. And so this movie is based upon those events as to what took place on the ship, in between when Dracula was making his journey across the sea to come to England for the first time. And the name gives it away because it was the Demeter. The Demeter is the famous ship from Bram Stoker's story.
Yeah,
so but you're right. The elements are there. It's very alien. There's like that. It's claustrophobic in the sense that you have nowhere to go. You can't escape the evil that is there. You must face it head on if you want to survive. But of course, it is Dracula, and it's not the kind of romanticized version of it. It's the more monstrous version that Coppola used in some sequences of that film. So it kind of harkens to that instead of the Gary Oldman.
Honestly, I would keep the intrigue. Like, it's fine that it's Dracula, but I wouldn't even announce it in the trailer. If you just leave it as, here's just a creature, because new creatures are fascinating. I've seen a bunch of Dracula stuff, and I like Dracula and vampires in there. That's cool and everything, but it's like the idea of just this creature. That's what made Alien so good, was because you didn't know what it was. We've never seen anything like that before. So if they just left it a mystery of there's just this creature that's loose on this ship, that would intrigue me a little bit more. I mean, I'm still interested. The August release date worries me because August is usually one of the dump months. So that does kind of
it's set to come out after the major tent poles, so it's being primed for that moment where it's not going to have any kind of major competition. But I will say, with such production, with DreamWorks behind this and the production values that obviously went into this movie, the boat looks fantastic. The set pieces are absolutely amazing, and then you have not to mention like David Desmalkian is in this as well. He's a fantastic actor. Liam Cunningham is a legendary actor. So much talent has gone into this, both in front of and behind the camera. Not to mention Javier Botet, who people remember is the Spanish actor with Marfan syndrome, who's like the Doug Jones from Spain, and he plays various monsters. He played the Mama and the creature Mama in Del Toro's Mama, and he was in Wreck as well. He was the zombie, the big monster thing at the end of Wreck. So he's got a history of playing these kind of characters. That physicality is going to lend itself so well to this monster movie. So I'm strongly looking for. I'm big time, even though we know how it ends. And there have been movies like that where we knew how it ended.
That's perfectly fine. I'm fine with movies that's like, hey, I mean, you go in the Blair Witch Project, you already know everybody dies.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You go, it's like, well, we only found the footage. We never found their body. So obviously no one's making it out of this, but what happened there? And because the story in the book, in Stoker's book, was only one chapter. So there's not that much detail. So all of this is additional stuff that's being it's artistic license, which is going to make it a lot of fun and really, really interesting. Not to mention the visual appeal of that, and because Dracula can't leave the ship either, because he can't move into, because Dracula can't step foot over running water. So he's literally trapped on the boat with them. And if they kill him or they get him off the ship, he'll die. So his survival imperative is as strong as theirs. So they're trapped together, and it's a risk that they both take. And I love that it's going to have that dynamic, and hopefully that will come out in the acting as well. Let me see here. So we had some major commentary on this. Let me see. Dang, going up 125 ways. See. So thank you, Vera Lucia Campus says, don't forget to like and subscribe and share. We do appreciate it. Jeremy Duncan says, ooh, I'm looking forward to real vampire horror, not this Twilight BS pushed lately, which we're going to get into a little bit. Denova28 says, I'm interested in it. Travis Brown says, spoiler, everyone dies in the Demeter. We'll see how you are correct. Denova28 says, ships and vampires, freaking awesome. Dude, that movie Blood Vessel took me way by surprise. I did not realize how good that movie was going to be. It was about it basically takes place during World War II, and a Nazi ship has just gotten done plundering like the old castles and shit and they were taking the loot with them across the sea. And it turns out that one of the castles they plundered was a vampire's castle. They took its casket on board, and so not just a vampire. Yeah, so it winds up bringing 2 vampires on board because there's 2 caskets. And so they wind up bringing on board, and how some adrift allies wind up on the ship, because once the vampires killed everyone, it's just a ghost ship. Now the friggin' allies, like some shipwrecked allies, make their way onto the ship, and now the horror begins again. So it's that was a good fucking movie with a good monster too. Blood Vessel, that one's highly recommended if you haven't seen it. It's on Shudder. Let me see. Jeremy Duncan says, hello, Travis. That was not a spoiler. We all know this. Brian Bell says, maybe I can get some new subscribers while I'm here at my military school. Thank you, Brian. We do appreciate that. Cool. Hello, Elizabeth Sylvester. Good to see you. Thanks so much. Smitty is too far gone. Good to see you, Smitty. Thanks so much for hanging out. Jeremy Duncan says, loving the looks of Dracula in this as well. Absolutely. Love the monstrous version of that. It's going to look so good. NA's here. Good to see you, NA. Thanks so much for being here. Sir Cab says, the best boat horror will always be Triangle. Fight me.
Boat horror. I mean, Triangle is very good though.
Triangle is so fucking good.
Very good.
But all of Triangle, I mean, come on. It's not. The problem is, Ghost Ship had like the best 5 minutes in it, because that opening sequence to Ghost Ship was fucking amazing.
Oh, it's amazing. But that's the thing you have to remember with Ghost Ship, right? You have to remember the letdown.
Yes, the precipitous letdown. It's like that drop off is like, at least sometimes you get some bleed, right? It's like good, and then it bleeds and kind of peters out. No, in Ghost Ship, it was just boom.
It was like, oh man, the steel cable scene. Man, I bet this movie has so much more going on.
Nope.
It
doesn't.
No. and okay, I will be honest. I know, because a couple of people called me out. I have not read the original Dracula. I will apologize. I have not read it. I haven't. So the time will come. I will read it, but I just have not yet.
See, Eugene's too busy making movies. He has no time for the printed word. Okay. Raven Darkstar says looks good. It really, really does. Travis Brown says O2's Ghost Ship is the worst boat horror with the best 5-minute intro. It really does. Genova20 says almost gives me Blood Vessel vibes. Fuck yes. Bobby Williams says, oh my God, this looks awesome. Good to see you, Bobby. Thanks so much for being here. Jeremy Duncan says that was a galleon. That was actually a galleon ship.
Okay.
Yeah. Casey Cooper says looks like great production. It really does. Raven Dark says looks like a good old fashioned vampire flick. Fuck yes. Jeremy Duncan says, I mean, come the name, the name should have given away the Demeter. And he says, gonna be a little mean here, but Eugene should lose his horror card. LOL. I'm not going to agree with that. I won't. I would say
because we talk movies here.
Yes.
If this was a horror book podcast, then yeah, I would resign immediately.
I would actually say I would say, okay, were you a Boy Scout?
Yes, I'm an Eagle Scout.
I'm an Eagle Scout as well. Okay, so do you remember when you got your chit? Your knife handling chit. You remember that? Okay.
Yes.
We're gonna clip a corner of your chit. Is what we're gonna do.
So I got
Okay,
3 left before
so
I
you
lose
got 3
it.
left. So if we clip all 3, then you lose. Then you lose.
Then I'm
your
out.
shit. So yeah. So
I got to
we're
take the
gonna
course
clip-
again.
For anybody who's been to Boy Scouts, that should bring back memories. So I made it through. I only had 2. I only had 2 that were clipped off my chin, and I never lost my card, either my knife chit or my fire chit, neither one. So that took a turn. Oh, let me see here. Who else we got? So Case Cooper says, so Eugene can't read or doesn't read. Eugene doesn't read. He
I
does
never
read.
learned to read.
Is that part true? Or has seen any Dracula movie ever? Hey, Welsh News Network, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here as well. The Demeter gives away his Dracula. Absolutely, it does. But I think it's going to be a good time. Mr. Malort is here. Good to see you, Mr. Malort. Says, but that is the Dracula story. Agreed. I'm looking forward to it. And I think it's going to be an excellent movie, and I'm looking forward just from the talent in front of the camera.
But see, I want to bring up this very last point that, okay, so people who've read the book would know, okay, this is obviously featured Dracula being born. But from a marketing perspective, I would still keep that in because the people who've read it and know it can go, oh, there's Dracula. But if you don't reveal it in the trailer, first of all, people I wonder how it's going to look like, and let people imagine and kind of think about it. Because as more people think about a trailer, the more traction that it gains. Because that's what marketing is designed to do, to make you think about it. So it's the kind of thing, like if you haven't read it, not revealing it goes, I wonder what's on the ship. And the thing is, if you have read it, it's like, oh, it's Dracula. And then people start speculating, what is Dracula going to look like? What is this? How they're going to approach that? So even leaving it a mystery for marketing purposes is still the way to go.
Well, in that, you wouldn't be able to release the name of the boat. Like, you wouldn't be able to show boat's name.
That's what I say. You release the name of the boat so people who've read the book know. But it still makes you talk about, like, how are they going to do Dracula? Because you can do Dracula so many different ways.
Of course, Mr. Blow says, except for the millions of people that have read the book. So I've read it twice myself, and I have to agree with sarcasm. Fair warning, Dracula isn't exactly an easy read. It's not. It really, really isn't. But nonetheless, man, so never read Dracula, aka Undead. It was Raven Dark Star. So Jeremy Duncan says the written word for a lot of horror gives the best in-depth imagination to any movie. Absolutely. So this is intriguing. The reason I wanted to bring it up and show this was because there's some speculation going on now. Everybody out there in the live chat, and I know you're aware of it as well, that Universal was fighting hard to try and create its dark universe. And every time they've tried to kick this thing off, it just doesn't work. It's like they dropped The Mummy in it, with Tom Cruise, and it fell through. The Invisible Man was intriguing, but the Invisible Man may or may not be, because it was a Blumhouse production. It's not, so we don't know where it's going to go with that. We haven't gotten a Dracula film. The Wolfman with Benicio del Toro was great, but things kind of stalled after that. Although I really fucking love that movie with Benicio del Toro.
The one from like 2010.
Yeah, and Anthony Hopkins. I thought it was brilliant. Rick Baker fucking effects. Fuck yes. So they were going to go with the dark universe, and it feels like they keep trying to reboot it. Then you had like Dracula Untold with Luke Evans, which I thought was an excellent film. I thought it was really good. But is it universe building wise? We don't know. But now we have Last Voyage of the Demeters coming out, and there is word out there that Guillermo del Toro is developing a new Wolfman, or is developing a Frankenstein film, so for Universal, and a Wolfman film is also in pre-production as well. And we just got word that the lead actress from Scream 6, and I want to make sure I get her name correct, not Jenna Ortega, but I think her name is Melissa Barrera. Melissa Barrera has signed on to an undisclosed project with Radio Silence. Radio Silence is the company that made Scream 6. Is signed on to an undisclosed project with Radio Silence for Universal, which quite possibly could be a Creature from the Black Lagoon film.
This is why they mess up, and I'm afraid they're going to mess up again.
Okay.
And you said it earlier. Oh, the film needs to be universe building. It does not need to be universe building. It does not. All you need is a solid film. When you look at Iron Man is not a universe building film. It is a solid standalone film.
Right.
Period.
It only used the mid-credit scenes to imply a bigger universe.
To imply, but but in terms of the actual film itself, if that was just a one and done and there's no other Marvel connection to it at all, just whatever, just a one of, then it'd still be a fantastic. It'll go down as one of the best superhero movies. The same thing when you look at Star Wars, the 1977 one. It's a great film by itself without any other context. Hints a little here and there, but that's it. Every time you get these people that are like, we're going to start a universe from the beginning. That's why the DCU has problems, because they're already going into this. That's why they keep trying with the Dark Universe and they keep having problems. What they need is they just need a solid film by itself. You don't have to imply or hint or anything else. Just a solid film. That's why you look at Invisible Man with Elizabeth Moss. That is a good film.
That was a fucking good movie. That was and I saw that Travis Brown had a problem with Blumhouse. Blumhouse hits or misses. More often it hits than it misses, but there are some Blumhouse misses, absolutely. But The Invisible Man was fucking brilliant. That movie was great. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, it was like that movie. That movie's fantastic. It didn't have to hint at anything else. You didn't have to have Russell Crowe calling himself like Dr. Jekyll and all sorts of stuff. No, you just something like
that. He basically
No.
went from acting to just who he was when he did the transition to Hyde. So it was pretty much just on Russell Crowe acting. Now I'm just Russell Crowe as I normally am.
See, so that's it. Just, you know what I want? I want a good Frankenstein film. That's it.
Del Toro, Guillermo del Toro doing Frankenstein. Come on.
Yeah, I mean that's I'm excited about that.
Or I say Guillermo del Toro doing the modern Prometheus. Fuck yes, because I know he loves Mary Shelley and he takes a lot of inspiration from Shelley's writing. So I'm really looking forward to that. Not to mention, hopefully one day Del Toro doing at the Mountains of Madness. Fingers crossed that happens one day. But it's entirely possible that we could be getting another attempt at Universal trying to bring the classic monsters back. And Voyage of the Demeter may be the attempt to bring Dracula back up, to establish Dracula. But where they're going to go with it, I have no idea. What is the event? The MCU culminates with the Avengers. And then we have broken up storylines culminating in Avengers 2. What can Universal do is that you can establish the Dark Universe and culminate in the fucking reboot of the Monster Squad? I don't know where it can go is the problem. It's like, what? So how do you bring it all together? But hopefully we get good movies. Del Toro doing Frankenstein, fantastic. A new Wolfman is one of my favorites. A Gillman movie, a fucking Creature from the Black Lagoon. I would love to see a what we can do practical effects wise today with that, instead of having Del Toro's Shape of Water. That was excellent, and that was Doug Jones in practical effects. I'd love to see a Gillman, to really bring that forward. So who knows? Who knows where it's going to go? But exciting times as far as the horror universe or horror genre goes. Oh man, so much cool stuff. So what was it? So we talk about the Thing. Yeah, people were mentioning Alien. Alien was amazing. Thing as well. No more Alien films. The problem with Alien, with the Alien franchise, Alien 1, groundbreaking, awesome film. Aliens 2 or Aliens, Alien 2, Aliens, James Cameron. I mean, you can't go wrong. James Cameron he's like, we're not going to repeat what Ridley did. We're just going to bring in the guns and everybody's a fucking badass. Awesome.
And we're okay with that.
And we're okay with that. It's just wonderful, because it was nice to see, the universe is this world is bigger, and there's like heavy action in it as well, the Colonial Marines. And then Alien 3, I love Alien 3. I like what David Fincher did with it. And even David Fincher hates his own movie. I happen to like Alien 3. I'm a Charles S. Dutton fan. I'm a Charles Dance fan. Sigourney Weaver was hot when she was bald, and the alien was badass. I like the direction it went to. It made the universe bigger. But then Alien Resurrection, fuck you, Joss Whedon. That was a terrible goddamn script. And fuck you, the French guy who directed it, who had no concept of what he was doing. I can't remember the dude's name.
He's not important.
But Ridley messed it up. I wouldn't say that Ridley messed it up. It's Ridley's idea. It's Ridley's project. It's his baby. So whatever he intended initially from the start, that's what he was exploring with Prometheus and Covenant. Now, Prometheus was pure Ridley Scott. That was pure Ridley. That was his idea. That's where he wanted to go. Covenant was Ridley taking his idea and compromising with what the public wanted. So he's bringing the two together because he realized Prometheus really didn't sit well with fans. So he said, okay, let's give the fans what they want, but let's marry that with my vision. And so that's what Covenant was. Unfortunately, that turned out to be kind of just Alien 2.0. Just a redux of the first one with some elements from Aliens with the heavier action. And we don't know if we're going to get a third one, but there is potentially a reboot coming up. We have no idea. I think we read about there's a potential reboot of the Alien universe sometime in the future. I don't know. I haven't heard any further details about that, but I guess we'll see.
See, and a lot of it just has missed the mark. The first Alien is awesome because Aliens, as I've said before, it's a slasher movie in space, and you didn't know what it was, and it's just they're trying to figure out. As the audience, you're trying to figure out what's going on, and the ship itself is an excellent setting because you're trapped with it. It's dark, and then James Cameron sees it, and it's like, well, let's up it. Let's add more action, and we're going to show how deadly the xenomorph is because now you've got trained Marines ready for combat, and they're getting slaughtered too. So they just shows how strong the xenomorph is. But there's so much characterization that goes on that a lot of the later movies miss because when you're looking at the Marines in the second one, in terms of Corporal Hicks and Bill Paxton's character and APOC and so many, not APOC, APOC is Matrix. But the thing is there's so much great characterization, and that's what a lot of the films are missing, is focusing on the characters. So when they die, when they're in danger, we care about them.
So it was like, the interactions between all the Marines. There's every single one meant something because everybody had their moment to kind of solidify. Even characters like Wierzbowski had moments where they got to develop who they were. Even the pilot who was in there for like 45 seconds, I liked her.
I felt bad when she died.
I felt bad. And so there's so many great moments. And then you have the relationships between Hicks and Hudson, Hicks and Vasquez, Hicks and Apone as well. The world building in that was important like that because we already have Ripley established. Now we establish everybody else. Paul Reiser, we all fucking hated him because he was just like the slimy fucking bureaucrat and shit. And it was like when he gets got, it's like, fuck yes, you got got. So, and not to mention, you got to do all this beautiful exploration, which is what made that one so fantastic. And that is what drew me to Alien 3 because you still have Ripley exploring, but you have all these other different characters that I thought were brilliantly done. Charles S. Dutton, even though the whole like double Y chromie thing is just science fiction, it's a science fiction movie. Okay, but you have Charles S. Dutton, you have Charles Dance, and you have all the individuals in the prison. Pete Postlethwaite, fuck yes. You had all these different personalities in the prison, and then all of a sudden, it's a male prison, never seen a woman in like decades. All of a sudden, a woman shows up, and it's fucking Ripley. Fuck yes. What are you gonna do? And I love that the two alien things that have come into this environment have now disrupted things because it's not just the alien that showed up, it's Ripley as well. It's also alien to the environment, which I loved the dichotomy there because now the prisoners are both in a survival imperative, but for two different reasons: to not die from the monster and their urges because there's a woman nearby, because there's a woman here. So I love what that does and how all of the different actors played with that. That's why I think that film is brilliant. And a lot of people kind of gloss over that, but that's just me. I'm not trying to turd polish Alien 3. I just fucking really, really enjoy that movie. I really do. I just really do. Let me see. Before we jump in, Paracord Princess is here. Good to see you, Paracord Princess. Thanks so much for being here. Joshua Lee as well. Good to see you. Mr. Boyd says, I love the Wolfman. Fuck yes. I'm looking forward to it. Whatever universe, how they do it, hopefully we get some
we'll see how it goes.
And he says, how do I get out of this chicken shit outfit? You stole that shit, Hudson. I fucking love that. If you ain't been keeping up on current events, we just got our asses kicked, pal. Dude. Oh,
even Paracord Princess. Hey, Vasquez, have you ever been mistaken for a man? No, have you?
I fucking love Vasquez and her relationships with everybody there, especially with Gorman, with the lieutenant, because you're ex-military. Or you're former military, so you know the lieutenant and the officer and the enlisted relationship. And it's like, how many drops does it make for you, Lieutenant? So it was like, what was it? It was how many drops does it make for you? 37 simulated. How many combat drops? 2, including this one. And it's like, what the fuck? And then fucking Hicks is just.
It's okay. Real quick before we dive into these movies, because I'll tell y'all a fantastic story from Afghanistan, right?
Oh shit!
And so we had our base, and we had our lieutenant who was sitting there. He's walking around the base, and the lieutenant sees this unidentified Afghan, or 2 unidentified Afghan males walking around the base, like inside the wire. No idea who they were, no uniforms, nothing. So the lieutenant radios it in to the command center. Hey, by the way, cool. We need to send our quick reaction force, see who they are. We don't know. This was like a month ago in Iraq. Some Afghans, a suicide bomber ran into a chow hall and blew up a chow hall. So this was like a month after this happened. So when we hear 2 unidentified Afghan males inside, everybody starts freaking out. Cool. So QRF goes and finds the lieutenant, and like we go and we're like, "Hey, where are they?" Lieutenant was like, "I lost them." We're like, "What?" Well, I saw them. I radioed in, and then I ran. Seriously? Yeah, it's like, yeah, I ran.
I ran away.
This was our company commander, and we're like, okay. So, like, we need to find where they are. And about 3 minutes later, we get a call from the supply lot from some PFC who's like, hey, I detained 2 Afghan males that are walking around. I just thought y'all should know. So you have some 18-year-old kid by himself who detains them and does his actual job while the lieutenant ran.
That's fucked up.
So, and apparently it was okay. It was apparently they're part of the Afghan army and stuff. So, like I said, no one got hurt. There, nothing bad happened. But it just, I always think of that story when I think of lieutenants.
That's wild. That's fucking wild. I like, James Cameron, I think, had some excellent input going into that. And do you think he captured the essence of the military like the relationships in the military? Well, I thought, not to mention them dealing with this lieutenant who's coming in. It's like, oh, great, Gorman's here. What the fuck? And then Apone's just like, we got to fucking deal with this shit. Fucking get your asses in gear. And then Ripley coming in as the advisor, and how they kind of react to outsiders. I thought it was brilliantly done, and it was what drives the movie, especially when everybody finds themselves in the shit.
Yeah. And even at that point when the battle actually starts happening and Ripley's like, make a decision, do something, get them out of there, do something. And then she's the one that actually gets controls of I can't remember the vehicle's called, and drives it in and helps rescue the Marines.
See, and it's because she's proven herself. She took control of the situation. She did what needed to be done, and she got the job done. Whereas Gorman's like, until finally, and too late, Gorman finds his fangs. They have that epic sequence with fucking Vasquez and the fucking Grenados. Like,
he's like, you were always an asshole.
You were always an asshole, Gorman. Fuck yeah! It's like, oh, fucking love it. Oh, damn. And it wasn't just I keep forgetting the other dude, because I gotta give you, it was Vasquez and Hicks and Hudson, and there's but the other dude, the big guy, son of a bitch, and not to mention Lance Henriksen, and as fucking Bishop was fucking brilliant.
Oh yeah,
son of a bitch, the guy who the other big dude who was friends with Vasquez, big, tall, blonde-haired guy.
He was the other incinerator.
The other one with the belt with the hip situated minigun, or the hip situated.
I want to say they're called incinerators.
And I can't remember what his name was. Son of a bitch. Oh, someone in the live chat's gonna remind me of that. Yeah. But you know what? Let us know down in the comments below the future of the Dark Universe. Does Universal have something going on there? Is this a possibility? Would you like to see, things something like Del Toro's Frankenstein or a new Wolfman film or possibly even a Creature from the Black Lagoon? Let us know what you think down there in the comments below, or of course, at weekinhorror@gmail.com. Love to hear your thoughts on that. And if you'll go and see these movies when they come out. I tell you, I will go see Last Voyage of the Demeter. I think it looks fucking amazing. Not to mention, I love fucking Liam Cunningham and everything he does.
Okay.
If you ever get...
Oh, no. Go ahead.
I was like, if you ever get a chance to see, he did a horror movie. Liam Cunningham did a horror movie. Drake. Thank you. Drake. That was it. And it was
Drake.
Smart Guns. Yes, it was Drake. Drake, we are leaving. So we are going.
I love it when he turns in like the trigger. He like turns it in, and then Vasquez just hands him another one.
Like, hands him another one. I like to keep this close. I like to keep this handy for close encounters. It's like, take the smart gun, but I've got my 12 gauge. Oh, Drake. Thank you so much, Raven Dark. Sorry, it was Drake. Let me see here. So I totally spaced where I was going with that. I totally missed my train of thought. But yeah, definitely let us know down in the comments below. Future of the potential Universal Dark Universe, the Universal Studios, the original monsters. So hopefully we'll get some good stuff. Definitely going to see Last Voyage of the Demeter. Oh, it was Liam Cunningham. Liam Cunningham was in a horror movie called I think it was Let Us Pray, where he plays what may or may not be the devil.
Oh yeah.
And he lets himself get arrested, and he's sitting in a prison cell, and he's like, he knows what's gonna happen. It's all fucking chaotic and all this fucking, it's blood, death, and destruction all around him. But he may or may not be Satan himself. I'm not sure. So I don't know. It's very ambiguous, but he was really good in that. So
well, so speaking of which, because I know we've gone off on a tangent, and there's never wrong talking about James Cameron and aliens. I can talk about that all day. But we do have a couple of movies that people are here for us to talk about.
Yes, we do.
What do we got first?
All right. This kicks one up. Oh, and I have to say, Sir Captain says, this week's tangent brought to you by James Cameron. Thank you, Jimmy. Absolutely. All right. So the first movie we're going to talk about tonight, released April 23rd, 2017. So it's a fairly recent one. Just past the moratorium. So we can talk about it. We can talk in depth about this one. And it is called The Wicked One. Let's check out this trailer.
As a young boy, Colin Miller started hearing voices. Voices he claimed came from an entity that only he could see. He called that entity the Wicked One. From the moment he entered this establishment, Colin Miller ceased to exist. Now only the Wicked One remains.
You guys grew up afraid of ghosts and boogeymen. It's not the same for the people of Carpenter Falls.
See, the part of the story that she's not telling you is that the land that the Miller house was on, it's this land. After the murders and everything, my pop came in here, purchased a property, built a house. On the other side of the property, the old house is still there.
That's what Wicked Fest is doing. They're just trying to stay true to the meaning of Halloween.
About a local boogeyman legend.
The Wicked One. Quentin.
All right. So we have The Wicked One, directed by Tori Jones, written by Tori Jones and Cheyenne Gordon, and starring Katie Stewart, Dale Miller, and Jack Norman. The story follows a group of traveling friends who are hoping for a little fun-filled Halloween weekend getaway, who find themselves in the crosshairs of one of the most dangerous and prolific serial killers in history. It's not that real life based, but it's essentially there's this this killer who was arrested, was like lived in the area before, and he's been, in an insane asylum for a long time, and he escapes and he goes on a killing spree. So it kind of gives it away a little bit that the name of the town that they're in is called Carpenter Falls, because it absolutely takes so much influence from Halloween, and not just Carpenter's Halloween, but predominantly. And I know if you watch this one, you see it, like it predominantly takes influence from zombies, from Rob Zombie's Halloween.
Here's a bad place to pull from. That's all I'm saying. So I watched it. Basically, and somebody already commented, the first comment we got after this trailer is the cinematography. The lighting on this film is atrocious.
Yeah, it's not good.
It's so bad. And it could be possibly excusable if it was maybe 2008, 2009, little indie when digital cinema was still very new. But this film came out in 2017. I shot better stuff on a DSLR in 2017 with nothing than what they shot on it. It looks like a glorified film student project, like a senior thesis film, where it's just like everything was kind of half there. And I knew from the very first kill where he goes in the basement, he like stabs a girl in the chest. That very first kill was like, oh, this is gonna be bad. this is gonna be when he's stabbing her and her body's not even reacting. It's like a. And she's not even dead yet. And I was like, this is bad. It's gonna be very bad.
Hey, Glober Mom, good to see you. Thanks so much. And my apologies, Raven. I accidentally misgendered Raven. I said he for some reason. I just felt like that. Raven is female, so I apologize, Raven. I will remember that. My bad. I may have been moving too quickly, but you are correct on that one. It was just from what I saw. Despite I'm a big slasher fan, and I like to see where they pull from and what they can bring to the slasher genre. And Jones did fairly decent in my interpretation. The problem was that I think that the lighting issue was a very amateur mistake that often gets made when you don't have a lot of money to spend, which is where I've got to give Jones some credit, because the film was only shot for $12,000, which is nothing nowadays. $12,000. I mean, to shoot an entire feature film, not to mention it's a slasher film, which means you've got money going towards your killer, you got money going towards your kills, and of course all the location shots, which is the reason why there are so few cast. Like the cast is so small, and the location of where most of everything takes place is on the farmhouse, is at the residence, with another sequence that's in the insane asylum. So it typically moves, but there's only like 3 locations: the farmhouse, the insane asylum, and of course like the party, like the Halloween party that everybody goes to where the band plays. And so the thing that stuck out to me is that so much of this was taken from Halloween. But I will say that while it did copy the whole, like, he killed his family, and just like the Rob Zombie one, the splatterific way, he did do that. He winds up in an insane asylum. Even the sequence when the guards come to get him, because they have to move him, they have to like temporarily move him. The guards come to get him. He's wearing a mask. He's got masks all over his room. He's like, oh, he's really into masks and shit. And then they move him out, and then all of a sudden they do the switcheroo where he escapes. He kills the guard, very Jason X style, and then proceeds to release all the inmates. And then he goes on like a house-to-house rampage, and he kills someone. He kills 2 people exactly the way Danny Trejo and the stepdad was killed in Zombies Halloween. So he kills one in the recliner, drowns Danny Trejo, and so everything is copied. But I will say this: despite how much was pulled, and despite how much they kind of copied these things, it didn't feel like, I didn't get the sense of like, oh crap, they just copied these kills. Like, oh, he used this, because the cinematography choices were a little bit different. He did some smarter choices with the camera, or some different choices that weren't bad, that I thought showed them in a different angle, which I thought was pretty decent. I thought it was like, okay, at least he's trying to make it his own in some way, which is smart. Some people would just wrote copy and it's just a ripoff, and you're like, eh. So at least he was trying to fill that void. which I didn't find too bad. Plus, I loved the additional mythology of this creature out there somewhere that possessed him that we only get some fleeting glimpses of. So there's an implied larger mythology here, which is not something that was in Halloween. They never addressed that. So I did like the attempted world building. So there were some good elements. So this is kind of the situation where I feel that copying kind of works best. Whereas like you use what worked that other directors have done, you changed it up a little bit to try and give it a, try to look at it from a different angle, probably do something new, and you added to it, which is not bad. It's admirable. I have to give him that, because it wasn't just rote copying. It was like he tried to make it his own. With only 12 grand, there's only so much you can do. I just wish the lighting had been better because shooting at night is a fucking bitch. It happens.
See, the thing, and it's hard for me to get really into a story when a film has so many technical issues, lighting being one of them. It does have some sound technical issues, a lot of like canned sound. Canned sound is, for example, if you need footsteps, instead of recording footsteps on set or having a Foley artist record footsteps, you find footsteps on a website and then you just kind of like drop them in. So it never just lines up right or it just sounds right. It was just a lot of technical stuff. And it's like, it would have been better if they shrunk the scale down some and then did better execution. And that's like, honestly, that's the biggest thing. And it's going a little bit more kind of on their own because it just really does have that Halloween feel. But the thing is, it's like, I've already seen that. Like, give me at least a little something new. I know you're pulling from Halloween. So many people pull from Halloween. How many times has Carpenter name come up in films somewhere, or Carpenter Falls or Carpenter Town, or some character is like, oh, this is William Carpenter. I get it. It's cool. That's great.
Dude, we watched Death Machine. There was a fucking character named John Carpenter in that fucking movie. It happens a lot. It's like, what are the names of our characters? Raimi, John Carpenter. Really? That's what you're gonna do? Fuck it, fuck it. Tell your story. It's got Brad Dourif, so fuck it.
Like, okay, sure, why not? I just spending a little bit more time getting the execution down, and I always tell beginning filmmakers, they always have these broad ideas and they always want to hop to that feature film. And I had somebody messaging me today and they wanted to do a 67-page short film in 4 days. And I'm like,
no,
maybe gotta downscale that a little bit. Like,
narrow your scope.
Yeah. What you want to do is you want to start off small. I always recommend starting off on doing table scene. And a table scene is where you have two actors sitting down somewhere having a conversation. You don't have to worry about blocking, because they don't have to move around. They can sit at a table, and something that's like 3 minutes long. And that way you get a solid execution. And if you have issues with that, then you do it again and you can light better. You can move it. You can move the setting from like maybe now it's kitchen, now it's outside and so forth. Get it down so where you can make a technically sound film, because it's a lot harder to do than people realize. And then once you're able to make a technically sound film, then you can start leaning towards what you actually want to do, because technical issues pull people out of films real quick.
A real quick, like one thing that I noted while I was watching this one, before I watched the sequel immediately after this one, but while I was watching this one, because I had to see where it was going to go. So I was watching this one. The first thing I noted was that the extraneous, like, you really only needed 2 locations. You didn't need anything external. You could have shot everything at the farmhouse and then use the insane asylum as an alternative location. If you free up money without having to do the additional location, if you free that money up, that allow you to find a better location for the insane asylum stuff, because that place looked very cheesy, looked very obvious that this was, I thought it was a school. You know, like it was being utilized for this. There are better locations. And if you have the money, you can do that. Everything should have been centered around the farmhouse. That's part of that lowering it in scope. It's like you can literally move all of the elements of the movie to the farmhouse alone. You can even say that the town puts on this Halloween festival at the site of these brutal murders, as kind of a thing. And so they have this kind of like party that goes on out there, and then everybody kind of converges on this place, and then you have the murder kind of taking place around the area, especially after the party ends. He escapes, makes home, and then the stragglers there that are left there, they wind up getting killed as well. there's ways to narrow it down to make it a little bit stronger, so you're not having to jump between actually 4 different locations, because there was the party, there was their house, there was the bad guy house, and there was the asylum. You can cut 2 of those locations out and think about all the money you save on the locations themselves, on the travel between, the paying people in order to move all your shit over. All of that is payroll that is saved up that you can now apply to other places that needed it, like improving the location of the asylum and maybe a little bit more production value in the barn area, which would have been cool. But I will say, despite the ball, where they dropped the ball, the kills were decent, which is not typically what I would expect in a movie of this low budget. So we know they put their money in some of the right places. And so just, not really the design of the bad guy. The design of the bad guy was pretty basic. Guy with bag on his head.
Yeah.
That was pretty much it. But the kills themselves were quite solid. I thought were really, really good. There's only one that dropped the ball, and that was when the boyfriend gets smoked after banging his girl. And that's a thankful thing. At least he got laid. At least he got laid before he died. He got laid, and it was amazing. It was a good scene. It was actually well shot. He gets laid, then he gets killed, thankfully. And so that one was kind of dropped the ball, but all the other ones I thought were quite solid. And I liked it. And then it ends with the whole, like, he's hanging in the barn, Friday the 13th Part 3 style. And then he wakes up, oh, I'm alive. So, and that's what leads to the sequel, is because the bad guy survives.
That part where, like, she's sitting there and in the barn, and she's like, go for it, kill me. And then he, like, grabs her, and it's like in this weird slow motion thing that was just bad. Like, it was just when he's like choking her.
There's some inconsistency because the dude is like fucking superhuman strength, which is demonstrated in the movie, and then it takes him forever to like strangle this chick. He should have just like popped her head off like a goddamn cork. As strong as they made him out to be, is like, this guy's got like next level. It's because he's possessed. He's possessed by like a demon or something. So he's like, oh, I got power. And then, oh, a tiny child won't strangle.
I can't finish this off. And then all of a sudden he gets a rope around, and then the killer is hanging in the barn. So
it was odd, but I will give credit to Jones. I liked the world building he was trying to make. I think that this worked out a lot better on paper. That happens a lot. You get a screenplay, you get the screenplay whittled down, and then things can get in the way when you're finally on set and you get the gears, you get the things rolling, you run into problems. It's guaranteed to happen. You try to plan as much as you can, but sometimes things go, actors drop out, locations become unavailable. All of a sudden you have to switch. They may have had a better location for the insane asylum, but all of a sudden it fell through and they found something really quick on the fly and they just had to make do with it. You never know what's going to go on behind it, but unfortunately, technical issues, the ones you brought up, make those other things even worse. They make them stand out because we get so annoyed looking at dark scenes that's hard to tell what's going on, or bad audio. We start looking at other things. And when we're looking at those other things, we see the lack of production value or the lack of planning, and it makes the whole experience even worse. So
it really does. And that's one of the things is I didn't realize that they had 12,000. You have the budget, whatever you have, but investing in like a gaffer. Like just to up the lighting.
You need a Johnny O.
Yes,
you need a Johnny
O. You should have had him there.
Johnny Ortega.
You would have seen what's going on.
He would have knocked it out of the park. Johnny Ortega, master gaffer. Absolutely. Yes. It's but I will say this, for the lack of budget, for the where John, I enjoyed the film. It wasn't just like, it wasn't a slog. There are movies that are slogs. I didn't feel like Silent Hill Revelation watching this movie. I would watch this movie again over like Silent Hill Revelation, which actually put me to fucking sleep in the theater. The movie was so goddamn boring. At least this one had something to offer, and I liked the world that he was building. It's the reason it got a sequel, which I don't think was all as bad. Some of the acting, not so great, especially the additional killers, because it was the Wicked Ones was the sequel, because they added more bad guys.
Oh, of course.
I thought there was that, the acting was kind of terrible. I would have cast differently for the brother and sister killers. I would have cast that differently. And then of course, because again, in the sequel, they explore the elements of the infective power of violence, just like Zombie did in Halloween 2. The idea that violence spreads, that trauma and violence infects those who are affected by the initial trauma violence, and has an effect in their lives, and they themselves react to other things with violence because of their trauma. So that's where Zombie was trying to explore. I think he was a little ahead of his time, and it really did come out very well in Halloween 2. But they did the same thing with Jones did the same thing with the Wicked Ones. But I will say, the world building that he made, where he explores a little bit more of the demon, what it's doing, the effect of it, and I want him to go in that direction. I want him to go. I want to see more of that. So I want to see, because now all of a sudden, like the lead girl, who's the survivor from the first film, she has a vision of her friend, a Jeepers Creepers style, who died in the first movie, who comes to warn her. And during this vision, she sees like this throne thing with this fucking demon thing sitting in it. And it's kind of blurring out of focus. And it's like, but he was building up to something, but we never see any more of it. It's like, what the shit? I want more of that. So that leads me to my question. I want to ask the audience. The Wicked One, made for $12,000, dropped the ball in some areas, but not bad. Some decent world building and some decent choices as far as like kills go and the graphic nature of the slasher genre. Then you have the sequel, which kind of expanded a little bit on the mythology, didn't really add much more, acting like that. Some bad choices there, but the world building is interesting enough that I think may deserve an additional like film, maybe a prequel. I don't know. I want to ask the audience, do you think the world building that Jones has created here, that he's developing here, does it deserve a prequel or maybe a third film to kind of wrap things up? Even though the primary killer supposedly gets killed at the end of the sequel. But I'm very, very curious. Do you think that this deserves like a prequel to like explore the mythology, maybe the origins of this thing, or possibly even a third one to kind of wrap things up? Let us know in the comments below or here in the live chat, or of course at weekinhorror@gmail.com, your thoughts on this. Or should we got 2 movies and that's enough and it should be done. Jones should move on to other things. Let us know what you think. I'd love
Is the sequel lit better?
The sequel is lit better. It is.
Okay.
Yes, it is lit better. Especially there's actually a really, in the sequel, they go back to the barn, the original barn that they were fighting in. So there's a lot of consistency between the sequel and the first one, and they have a throwdown in like where it's like the entire, because now it's the 2 survivors from the first film. It's like years later, and now they have kids of their own. So they have like 3 kids or 2 kids, 3 kids, I think. Anyway, it's a family. And it becomes a family affair because there's a scene where the entire family is kicking the shit out of the bad guy in the barn. Like we're fucking like The Boys style, where he's like, he's getting hit from all angles here, which is actually really, really well shot. I'll give him that, because he was like, oh, I'm the killer. And then he's like, he's got the freaking crowbar, bam. And then the wife's got the golf club, bam. And he's like, oh shit, I'm getting fucked up. So it's some decent stuff in there. I do. Sir Kevin says 2 bombs are more than enough. And Joshua Lee says, prequel, needs a prequel. I would like to see a prequel. I think Jones could do it. I want him to explore the mythology. I want to know more about this demon thing that possesses people and drives them to just murder indiscriminately like everybody. Especially, there's thematic shit there. There's like the crucifixion scene, like, he's like crucifying people shit. Where does that come from? I'd like to know more about this. Casey Cooper says, need a dual-barrel turd polisher. Dude, the turd polisher literally runs on just like straight oil out of the earth. No refining. You just set it on fire and it just goes. That's why it's so smoky in here. Oh, man. But yeah, definitely let us know what you think down in the comments below. Absolutely. Wicked One's prequel or maybe a third film to wrap up the mythology. All right, man. What do we got next? I'm so glad I gave this one to you. I fucking love it.
It was weird.
It was so weird.
It's so weird. Just, I was watching this movie and I'm like, why? Why? People don't act like that. But so the next one we have is My Demon Lover, which was released April 24th, 1987. Roll it.
That was fucking Lin Shaye. Lynn Shay in that scene.
Make some changes. You lie on the floor.
It's the way she falls.
It's a jungle. I'm affectionate.
Bonsoir and good evening, ladies. And all Denny wanted was someone to love.
The strays, they see you coming miles away. Dogs, alley cats, actors.
I am called Cat.
I like men.
Then she met her perfect mate.
You are attracted to scum. All I want is someone to take care of.
I am a Pazatsky.
Oh.
You got the curse all over you, boy. It's sex. I can't do it, think about it, or even look at it. I turned into a monster.
Piece of cake. Honey, it won't change the way I feel about you.
No. What a bet.
You either gotta get tough or you gotta get a gun.
Put your mouth where your mouth is. Kiss me, stir me up, prove to me that I'm wrong.
You look really, really awful.
That was such a weird sequence.
Yeah, it really was.
The best in her brings out the beast in him. Falling in love can be very scary. My Demon Lover, starring Scott Valentine.
All right.
You have to admit, it's a nice little break from what we normally watch.
Was not expecting that, but
yes.
All right. So you got My Demon Lover, directed by Charlie Leventhal. How do you pronounce that?
Loventhal.
Loventhal. Starring Scott Valentine, Michelle Little, Robert Trebor, Alan Fudge, Gina Gallego, and Arnold Johnson. And basically you have, in a nutshell, you have Michelle Little befriends a street drifter who happens to also be a demon. And that's it. There's shit doesn't get real. There's nothing.
It is absolutely an 80s rom-com. It's an 80s rom-com in every sense of the word. Every sense of the word, this thing is an 80s rom-com. It has all the 80s rom-com tropes. The only difference is the lead, the actor, the guy in the relationship is a fucking demon, or he turns into a demon when he becomes sexually aroused. So, and he says, "Wait, that wasn't real, right? It was. It's absolutely real."
It's a full movie.
Peter Noddle says, "Now that's my kind of horror movie." So, okay, this is okay. The reason I'm so glad we got to talk about this, I finally we get to sit down to watch this one. Obviously, not a lot of people knew this movie existed. It came out in 1987, and it was by New Line Cinema. So the house that Freddie built released this bad boy, which is weird. You're right.
All can't be winners.
They all can't be winners. This is true. But I will give it this. And Scott Valentine delivers a fucking performance that I will remember, because he takes this thing to the hilt. He plays that character to the absolute hilt. But this is I found it interesting, because this is one of those moments where the horror saves the day. Because this movie, if there was no horror element, if there was no like guy turning into a fucking demon and shit, and then the big demon battle, everything, and then the demon, there's two demons in the movie. There's one is Scott Valentine's character. He's like, and then there's another demon that's running around as a serial killer. So just murdering all these women. So we don't know if the demon if the serial killer demon and Kaz, the guy who turns into a demon, are the same thing. So it turns out it's not. Then there's a big climactic demon battle at the end with some really goofy special effects, but at least character effects, I say it's like like practical effects, I would say on par with Nightbreed, which I felt were pretty decent at the time. I'll give it that. The character design of that was fairly decent. But if this was just a rom-com, this movie would fucking suck. It was so boring as far as the exposition and I'm unlucky in love in 80s New York, which I love 80s New York because it's such a fucking cesspool. They always portray New York in the 80s as this rat-infested nightmare hellscape, like this urban hellscape where everybody you meet is just garbage. So, but it blows. But they throw in the demon element, and I think ultimately that saves the film.
I wouldn't necessarily call saving the film. It's kind of a stretch. But like the entire time I'm watching it, and like when she meets Scott Valentine, like talking about one of the most unrealistic scenes you can ever see, because she's sitting at a restaurant and she's like sitting there and she gets her tofu burger and she's out on like the patio and it's a nice beautiful day and she's enjoying the outside weather, and then you have this
it's definitely its commentary on veganism or like vegetarianism, because it's like beets, grains, lecithin. It's like this weird fucking burger. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
So she's enjoying her nice day out on this patio, and there happens to be a trash pile next to this patio because that's where trash piles are.
Because that's 80s New York, man. Just piles of garbage everywhere.
And then you have this guy who looks homeless, like crawl out of it, staggers around, sees, and then he goes up to her and starts begging for her food, which she eventually like gives him, and he like spits it. He eats the food and then spits it back on her. And then they just walk off and they have this conversation going down the street.
That's the love interest.
Are you kidding me?
That's the love interest. The love interest opens up with basically a homeless vagrant begging for her food and then eats it and then like just spits it up all over her because it tastes disgusting. It's like it's all over her dress and shit. It shit is fucking insane.
Like, seriously, that's how they meet. I want to hear one woman on this planet go, "Oh, I met the love of my life and husband when he was on a trash pile and he came up, ate my food and spit it on me. And I knew right then I was in love."
The movie is so it's so fucking just it's so absurd and ridiculous, but I love it for the 80s tropes. Peter Noddle says B grade is BS. It absolutely is. Dr. Nimrod, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here tonight. He popped into the chat. Good to see you. Global Mom says Scott Valentine was popular because he was Mallory's boyfriend from Family Ties. It's true, and I love what he brought to this. And that's the beauty. That's one thing I noticed about that. Something that I wanted to kind of dive into. There's not much to really much say about this one, other than the things we've already said. It's decently shot. It's got this weird fucking plot. The practical effects are fairly decent. The reason this is horror, and I will give it this, for 1986, the whole sequence, and you saw it in the trailer, when he runs his head into the wall and his head is gone, that turns into this nightmarish sequence where he then starts to shift his image to like other people. And then all of a sudden, like he splits open at one point and there's like yellow goo everywhere and fucking like tentacles and shit flying out. It's really grotesque. And there's elements that really drive the horror home in this thing. But otherwise, it's a goofy fucking, yes, sarcasm's right, a cocaine-fueled spitballing session that led to this fucking script. But one thing is interesting, and good to see you, Extra J. Thanks so much for being here. Peter Noddle says, that sounds not unlike my wife's meeting me story. But she crawled out of the trash pile and then threw up all over you. So. But this was intriguing. So I've noticed sometimes that throughout the 80s, especially with acting choices, that in the 80s, acting choices that you predominantly see are all very, very high energy. You had people who were very big on the camera, very loud, every moment is extremely high energy, to the point that you're kind of wondering, how could this person possibly exist being literally at like 11 the entire film? It's always big, 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 big. So, and you look at like what Valentine was bringing, is what the other characters do as well. Their emotional moments are always super, super large. Now, the reason we don't typically see that is because that kind of acting is typically reserved for the stage. When you're on a stage, you're recessed on a stage, and then you have an entire auditorium you have to fill, so you have to play everything big. But when you're on camera, you can play things small. But however, in the 80s, and especially in the 70s and 80s, everything was played large. Big, big characterizations, big, big emotions, big, huge moments, lots of frenetic activity. You look at Tom Hanks throughout a lot of his performances, Turner and Hooch, big. Okay? Always, especially in comedy, everybody was a fucking clown. But nowadays, you don't see that as much anymore. Here in the aughts and in the 2010s, and going to where we are now, we've seen a decline in that. Now we look at that acting and we say it's fucking goofy. And what I think would like to pose was that performances like this that we now are kind of like it's kind of off-putting. The reason for that, what I speculate is that because camera technology has improved so much from the 80s to now, that we don't need that anymore, because the physical nuance can come out in greater detail now that we have better technology. So as a result, we needed to see these comedic moments come forward, but because you're shooting a wide shot, right? And a lot of details in there to get someone's comedic moments, you're going to have in that natural grain. And so you need them to be big to sell the moment, to be the clown. But nowadays, everything's so high def, we don't need to do that anymore. So you can rein it in and bring it down, and you can convey it in your face. And then we can see in greater detail, and we don't need these big things, which is my speculation, is that the improvement in technology has dramatically altered how we see actors on screen these days.
See, I would come from the history when he's talking about film acting, how the very first films were basically like stage plays. And the stage has influenced acting so much. And a lot of times you have these actors that transition between doing stage and film, back and forth. And even when you think about, okay, you're in the 80s, well, if you take the director, well, what time period did they grow up in? They grew up probably in the 40s and 50s, where stage was big. In the 40s filmmaking, it was about escapism. You had these big musical numbers. You had everything was just big. And we're finally getting to a point now, and probably about the last 10 years, where upcoming filmmakers and upcoming actors aren't influenced by the stage anymore. You're not having these big productions because in the 90s, things are starting to scale down. You're not having a lot of these big musical numbers, these over-top performances, because it's like you start scaling down. People are looking for a little bit more realism now in their filmmaking versus like in the 60s. So as people are looking for more realism, people are looking for things that feel a little bit more natural, even like cinematography, lighting-wise. They're looking for more kind of a natural feel in lighting versus a lot of the 80s stuff where it still kind of feels like a stage. And so as basically filmmaking as a whole has been going more to this naturalism that it is today, where everything's just more subtle.
And I think this can also come out as far as the director goes, because if the director has predominantly their experience comes from that stage experience, they're going to bring that kind of stage mentality to their actors. So the actors themselves may be like, I think I should play it this way, but the director's like, I think you need to play it this way. The director is always the last call. You know, he's the one that signs off, or they are the one that signs off on whether this is going to be, in the final cut or not. So while some directors will allow their actors to play, some will not. So this could have been the effect of the director as well. This could have been Charlie Loventhal, who I couldn't find much information on, but if he came from, like regional, like especially regional or from Broadway as well, he would have this kind of inspiration where these things have to be big, especially in comedy. Everything's got to be large. Everything has to be frenetic. And I was constantly reminded by Valentine's performance of Tom Hanks in Turner and Hooch, because Turner and Hooch is a beautiful film. I love that movie. Tom Hanks was great in it. But look at his energy throughout the whole film. That dude is so fucking high strung to play to the comedy that it's almost, he's operating at 11. Even in a sequence when he's with Mayor Winningham and they're in the kitchen, they're having a lovely little moment where they've just banged and he's going to make her breakfast. Even that scene was way way too frenetic for me. And that's what I got from this. Even the quiet, intimate moments have to be big because we have to play this particular thing. And so I think that comes from, I think you're right on that. It comes from having that stage experience and transitioning stage performance to camera performance, which it was more kind of blended. Nowadays, we have people who only do movies and then occasionally transfer to stage, because we constantly hear about big actors and they're going to make their stage debut on this off-Broadway production. It's like, holy shit, Jennifer Lawrence is doing fucking stage. Well, that's where I think that's where you should have come up in, doing stage before you transition. But now it's kind of reversed. So it's a changing times, maybe a combination of the two. Just we see this fundamental shift in what audiences accept as an appropriate performance.
It really is, and that's a great point, because now you get to the point where actors usually make a decision very early on. Do you go film or do you go stage? And typically they kind of just stay in their lane at that point. Like I said, occasionally you'll get somebody like Hugh Jackman will go, he'll do like some Broadway stuff. That's occasionally, but for the most part, like the film actors that I know only do film. Like they don't even audition for stage or anything. That's just not what they're after, and vice versa on the stage actors that I know.
It's also a major like the commitment level is different because when you go for a stage production, and I've done of my history of stage production, especially one of the worst performance. Oh, it's not the worst performance. One of the worst productions I've ever been a part of was a performance of Dracula where I played Van Helsing, and I had to be big, and so I had to be big and also play a 63-year-old German man. So I had to play everything large. And we were trying to be very large, especially at 23 and relatively inexperienced, when I have to do the German accent. And then I have to make the German accent very big in order to fill the space. I come off sounding like Zsa Zsa Gabor. It was absolutely ridiculous. But I get that. Oh, JL says, of all the productions you were involved in was just, what? I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh.
So, and I understand that. I get that myself. Is that that bigness that you're kind of ingrained with. I think that actors should come from stage because that experience is you go to stage, you're doing the production, and you're there through all the rehearsals. You have all of your rehearsals, which is usually like upwards of 3 to 4 weeks before you even start tech. Then you have tech where you show up every single day. And they're doing all the lighting and making sure all the blocking is correct. So you're running through the scenes every single, just make sure everything is good. Then you have your tech week, and then you have your opening. And then you're usually on a typical run. It could be anywhere from 2 months to 6 months, sometimes even a year, depending upon who you're contracted with. And that's a year of doing the exact same thing over and over and over again. Whereas a movie, you show up, and sometimes you can show up for like 5 days, shoot your shit, and then you're out. And it's done. Then you just move on. So...
And I can see the split because as we talk about the difference between stage acting and film acting, with film acting, it's about getting it right one time. And so you can really dive into, let's say you have a real emotional moment and you need an actor to cry or grieve or something like that. They can throw their all into that one moment and give a brilliant performance, because the camera can catch the little nuances, the close-ups of the eyes, tears coming down the cheek. And in stage, you can't do that. You psychologically, you cannot go to that space 200 times in a year for all the performances over and over. The best actors in the world, you would either begin to drop off or it would drive you mentally insane. It's just one of the two.
And there's sometimes when real life kind of invades, because sometimes there were times when when we were doing the show and everything was funny, and there were times when we were doing it was just like because we couldn't help it, and there were times when we were doing the show and everything was fucking maudlin and it just dragged. So it happens, It's just that's the reality of it. Film, you just pop it, like I said, you pop in, you knock it out of the park, then you move on to the next one. Stage is it can be it's a wonderful and fulfilling and beautiful experience, but it can also be grueling as fuck. So,
yeah. But as we digress.
Yes.
So I want to ask the audience, what is your favorite horror comedy? There are some great ones out there, some that are just hilarious, just funny. I want to know, what is your favorite horror comedy? Let us know in the comments below or shoot us an email at weekinhorror@gmail.com. We already got Tucker and Dale.
Yeah, oh, there we go. Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Hell yes.
That.
So Sarcasm says, it's okay. You're just in time to plot hole has shown up. Good to see you. Johnny's in the chat. Good to see you, bud. Says you're just in time to trash the cesspool of a movie that Jail was polishing. I wasn't polishing it. I said there were some elements that were good, like the practical effects were decent. But I was saying that it's a good movie that when you're watching, you can see where the kind of like film ideology was in the 80s, coming the 70s, the 80s, and going into the 90s, and how things shifted. Kind of remembering where people came from and what people were doing at the time, which is why these things were so big. Why it's so different from now. Try to sit in the seat of someone in the 80s watching this movie instead of somebody from like 2023 going back and watching this movie. So this movie came out when I was 6 years old. So I'm kind of like, we have that preconception, but I like going back and saying, wow, what these actors, where did they come from? And likely was because stage was more important. And that's why comedy was conveyed in a different way than it was here, which is why now it's kind of off-putting, but then was, might have been a riot.
But see, even going on that, when you talk about like 80s films and the differences, good 80s films hold up today. because even despite anything that could be, say, like overacting, you cannot tell me that Back to the Future is still not a phenomenal movie.
It's phenomenal, absolutely, but it's Zemeckis, right? That's, I mean, it's also the direction and also,
I mean,
but
just
think about that. Think about how big Michael J. Fox was in that movie. Think about that energy that he maintains through the entire fucking picture.
Christopher Lloyd. Same level of energy. Well, the thing is, as a film, it works. It really does. Whereas in My Demon Lover, it can come across as, okay, this is just ridiculous, over the top. Like, okay, really? I'm just saying there's other 80s films out there that can take that same energy and they make it work.
Right. Oh, Joshua Lee brings up Little Shop of Horrors. Fucking Steve Martin.
Feed me, Seymour.
Steve Martin was fucking insane in that goddamn movie. Oh, mama. So much good stuff. Young Frankenstein's been brought up. Arachnophobia, Beetlejuice, Tucker and Dale, Repossessed, Return of the Living Dead, Shaun of the Dead. There's so many good ones out there. Yeah, but I love this. Huh?
No, there are so many great ones. Another great one I like, Zombieland. That movie's hilarious.
Yeah, and I dug this one because it was kind of a reminder as to how far we've come, or how much things have changed as far as a kind of ideological approach to filmmaking, especially with comedies, especially with horror comedies. And so I like that we're in this position where now things are a little bit more nuanced and we have better technology and we can capture those moments without having to put the onus on the actor to sell it to the camera. Now the camera can pick up a lot of that slack. So I really kind of dug it. It's like interesting how they came at this thing so differently in the 80s. And that's what kind of got me there. Once Bitten, The Frightener is fucking amazing. It absolutely was. All right. So let's jump on to our next one.
Yep.
It's like that. So the next film,
get it out of the way.
The next film we're going to talk about, of course, is Killer Movie, released April 24th, 2008. So we're jumping ahead in time again. Let's check out this trailer.
Now picture this, a small border town, the high school hockey team. For the first time in the school's history, they got a shot at the state championship. They need a solid director up there, and I told them you're the guy. I knew it.
You get your very own celebrity blanket champion. God bless her. She has got some beautiful tits.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I'm sure she'll be flattered you think so.
We are just so blessed by Jesus Christ. He's really rooting for us, and I know that he really wants us to win state.
Reality television has saved television. We all aspire to the truth, and what greater truth is there than reality, even when it's scripted?
There was an accident at the school.
She's dead, decapitated, heart beatless.
I don't think this was an accident. Jake, you've got about 5 minutes to get on that ice. We don't have a show without this game.
What do you want me to do, Lee? 3/4 of my crew is missing.
Oh my God, he's filming people while he kills them.
Well, let's just give away all the kills in the trailer.
I know, right?
Am I being punked? I thought they canceled
One more.
the show. Ashton.
So those are all the deaths, everybody.
That was pretty much it. So, Killer Movie, written and directed by Jeff Fisher, and starring Paul Wesley, Kaylee Cuoco, Jason London, Al Santos, Saya Batten, Leighton Meester, Tori DeVito, and Nestor Carbonell. The film follows a reality TV crew as they're going to just shitty 90s horror. Thank you, Johnny. Follows a reality TV crew as they go out to film this small town hockey team that's made it to the champions. Basic reality TV shit. When everything all of a sudden is interrupted by a killer, by a slasher, who ostensibly starts picking off the crew one by one until the big reveal at the end. there's no polishing that can get on this one. The premise here was solid. I can see where they were going with a kind of meta analysis of reality TV, juxtaposed against the view of violence and murder and death and goriness like that from a real perspective versus like the fictional perspective that we see in movies. I see that they were trying to do that. The problem is with this one. This one was rather aggravating. There's one mostly I really aggravated about this movie. There was one thing I dug, but mostly this film was obnoxious because you had a really decent setup where to explore this kind of meta analysis of reality TV versus like real violence and horror. And it doesn't work because everybody in this goddamn movie phones their fucking performances in, and it is so goddamn obvious. That was so off-putting and just annoying. It was because every time someone's on the scene, it has an opportunity to deliver dialogue that can drive this thing home and drive it forward. The actors are just like, I don't give a shit. There was no investment whatsoever. Everything was formulaic in that respect, and it just drags. The whole fucking thing drags. It could have been very interesting in the hands of the right director. Okay, because it's up to the director to get your actors there. Or if they can't get
100% director.
Exactly. If the actors can't get there, you get them the fuck out and you find an actor who can. Because, and there's just talent here. There's fucking talent here. I saw more shit. Like, I saw that predominantly your fucking lead, Paul Wesley, I saw him capable of so much more in the fucking Vampire Diaries than he was in this. Kaylee Cuoco delivers more nuance in the fucking Big Bang Theory than she did in this movie.
This movie, it's so bad. And I get what they're trying to do. And the thing is this, Leslie Vernon, that movie actually executes what this movie's trying to do.
Yes. It almost felt like that's what this one wanted to be.
And it just misses. I understand going for, reality TV is new, and what if it goes too far and we're filming deaths? But the thing is this, the movie just drags on. And the characters are cookie cutter. There's no one says anything that's important at all whatsoever. They talk about the dialogue phones in. The blocking looks fake. And it really does. I mean, there are moments where I'm like, why would you walk like that? Well, there's nothing. Callie does move where she like spins. Oh, and she's like says like a line of dialogue. I'm like, no one would do that. It's just bad.
Yeah, and now I see what Casey Cooper in the live chat says. It's just like reality TV, and I can see where the intention could be to have your actors do this kind of reality because to play like people like you're doing reality TV. So it's not acting. It's not as scripted. So people are just kind of being themselves. That's why it comes off like they're acting badly. The problem is that when you're looking at people who are not actors on television, and you're looking at people who are actors playing non-actors on television, that's what becomes problematic, is because it requires a high level of talent. And this is, okay, for example, Tropic Thunder made a great mockery. You can't be a smart actor pretending to be, or it's very difficult to be a smart actor playing a dumb character who doesn't know he's dumb. The whole problem with Simple Jack in Tropic Thunder. And then it's like, that's what makes it so difficult to do those kinds of things. He's like, the whole like going full, I don't want to say the word because it'll get me in trouble. But in this one, you've got very talented actors portraying people who are not talented actors, but ostensibly think they're talented actors. And it's a level of commitment that I think either they recognize that they couldn't get to, or they absolutely didn't care, which is why everything is just phone fucking in. That was a bad choice on the director's standpoint to have your characters portrayed like this. There was nothing natural about it, and it all feels it's staged. It all feels very fucking staged.
Because the thing is we can tell what is real. That is the biggest thing. You can have somebody and okay, you're playing a reality show and they're supposed to be like real life characters, and obviously they're not supposed to come across as acting. But the thing is, we can still feel real. We can pick up on phony and fake really quick. It doesn't matter if the character itself is supposed to be that way. we pick up on. That's why you have the opposite example, which Tropic Thunder makes fun of, is Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump feels like a real character the entire time, despite the fact that obviously that's not how Tom Hanks is. Everything here feels fake, and not even the good fake. So going back to like Leslie Vernon, which has a reality show premise, and everybody does a much better performance. It feels more natural. It feels more real. They feel like real people.
And that comes down to the director as well. The second time, I think that was what was that? Was that a Zemeckis film? What was it? Forrest Gump was Zemeckis? I can't remember who directed.
I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was another Robert Zemeckis film.
Yeah.
That's the strength of that director coming out. You could see that. With Leslie Vernon, that came down to the director, because not everybody's going to have the talent of fucking Tom Hanks and Robin Wright and all the individuals that were involved in that movie. So to be able to see that and say, this is what I need, but you also have to have smart actors who can articulate that as well. The director gives direction, they take the direction and they run with it. That's what's so very, very important here. This thing was simply in the hands of the wrong director, who was trying to be like, okay, it's kind of a meta glimpse, scream-wise, at the look of reality television, how phoned in and how fake it all is. So let's run with that as an overarching theme as to how all of our characters will approach the situation. Incorrect, especially when you have your opening setup moment of Leighton Meester's character getting decapitated with the barbed wire. She's trying to escape the killer. And that is all absolutely slasher film. Like, that is obviously, that's a slasher movie. That's all acting. That's a slasher movie. But then you try to segue an obvious film moment into this meta-analysis of reality TV that did not work at all. Establish with reality, then focus on the slasher film, the real thing turning into it. That was the problem, is the whole thing didn't come off the way they wanted to. This is solely the director's fault. However, and this is not turd polishing, but I will point it out, I thought the kills in this were quite good. So as far as a slasher film goes, they did succeed there. They succeeded on capturing some really decent kills and some good fight scenes with the killer. The killer wasn't this like all-powerful, I can't be stopped murderer. He's a very human killer. And sometimes people fight back and it's decent. So there were some decent scenes in here where the killer is taking people out and people don't just stand around going like, oh, I'm going to get killed. No, there's some action there. And I enjoyed that. I liked that aspect of it, where at least they put the money into the kills when you be like the girl with her head going into the table saw and shit, and then a number of the more graphic moments. I liked those. So that was solid. There's one reason to see it, so at least you can see some really bad performances get silenced really, really quick and in graphic ways. That was one saving grace of this movie that I could come up with. So,
I'm looking at the director, Jeff Fisher, right now, and this is his first feature film that he directed. He comes from a line of TV shows, including he directed The Simple Life, starring Paris Hilton.
Okay. So he's got reality TV background.
So that's probably how he got the job, going from reality TV. And what they should have done is they should have gotten a feature film director that can learn reality TV versus a reality TV director trying to learn feature film. Because when you come from a reality background, you're not giving actors direction, or at most you're like, stand here and talk about this, and then you just let Paris Hilton be Paris Hilton.
That explains why Kaley Cuoco's character felt. I didn't know that about Fisher, that his background was from that show with Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie. But that explains why Kaley Cuoco's character feels like a mishmash of Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie. Like, elements of both those characters are kind of like solidifying this, which is probably why it was so obnoxious, which is weird because I happen to like Kaley Cuoco. I like her, especially in her show The Stewardess. I liked that. That's a good
that was a good show. Yeah.
Exactly. I really, really enjoyed that. She's all of these people are very capable actors, and the other stuff we've seen them in is fantastic. Like, I enjoyed The Vampire Diaries. It's soapy vampire drama, but I liked it. It's good acting, good ensemble work. Kaley Cuoco is decent in Big Bang Theory. She's good in the other stuff that she's done. I really enjoyed that. And then, of course, you've got a number of, one of the actresses there was on White Collar, played an awesome character on White Collar. Everybody's got talent here. Then, of course, you've got Jason London, who plays the killer in this. And that dude's legendary. He's got a huge filmography. Nobody is utilized to their best ability. But I don't blame the actors on this one. I blame it on the direction that they were given. and how you have this director who's got this idea and this is what he's going to run with, and the actors kind of like, okay, it's a paycheck, fuck it.
Honestly, and because actors can pick up on weak directors or directors that don't give feedback, or especially when actors don't, I don't want to say like attention hungry, but it's like if an actor is putting in effort, they want feedback and they want to collaborate with the director. And whenever you have a director that's not giving anything back, they're not giving any direction, they're not giving any kind of tips, feedback, anything like that. A lot of times what happens is actors will check out.
Right.
Especially if they're like, they almost kind of, sometimes actors almost kind of push to see how far they can get away with in terms of performance wise. And some actors will, because they want that feedback. And then when they're not getting it and they're checked out, it's kind of a, well, why try? And actors will pick up on this like on day one. Like,
you have to have the give and take. And if it's starting to fade, when one actor checks out, then the actors that they're working across from scenes, especially when it's a one-on-one scene, there's supposed to be give and take. They say, okay, he's checked out, I'm checking out, and it just becomes this problem that just kind of like flows through the entire cast. It's like, okay, well the leads have checked out, so your secondary characters, fuck it, we can just check out and just do this. Let's just get through the shoot and just get it as quickly as possible. Tony Regime, Tucker and Dale was a good example of intelligent actors playing dumb characters. I'm going to add to that. That was an excellent example of intelligent, talented actors playing dumb characters who don't think they're smart. Okay, who acknowledge the fact that they're not really bright. They're hillbillies. It's like, fuck it, we're hillbillies. You know, we don't try to be anything more than hillbillies. You know, that's pretty much it. His biggest dream was having his own fishing shack or his own little hunting cabin.
Yeah.
That's his dream. Cool, man. That's a hillbilly dream. You get after it, son. That's what makes that so great, because you have brilliant actors playing dumb characters who don't think they're smart. You know?
And the thing about that is they feel real solid characters.
Yeah.
That's the selling point.
I've known some Tucker and Dales, man. I've known them in real life. They live 3 doors down from me. I lived in a very rural area. Where the boat is on blocks in the driveway. And they walk out with the big scythe. Hey, it's just like, oh my God. Y'all going camping? That is how you knock that out of the park. Hey, y'all going camping? Sitting in the truck in his freaking coveralls, eating pickled eggs. Just, oh no, I love it. I can go on about that movie all day long. But the one thing I want to ask about this particular film, the one thing that was enjoyable about this movie, about Killer Movie, the one and only thing that was enjoyable was the kills themselves. The kills were very good. The kills were well done. They were well executed and well shot. They're not too dark. You see exactly what you need to see. So at least we had that as far as
you can see it, actually.
You can see it. That's an important thing. Can I see what the fuck is going on? And that's what is important there. So at least the kills were decent. If you wanted to do a highlight reel of all the kills in Killer Movie, there you go. That's decent. Okay. I mean, they start off with a girl getting decapitated by barbed wire. She's on her little four-wheeler trying to escape the bad guy. That's a great way to kick it off. Whoop, whop, and then her head goes rolling away. Good stuff. Okay. Just do a highlight reel of it. Check out the kills. That's all you really need to do. But I do want to ask the audience, because there were some particularly brutal kills in this film. I just wish the rest of the movie lived up to them, is the problem. But I want to ask the audience, what, in your opinion, is the most brutal slasher movie kill? And I'm talking the most fucking hardcore that you have seen, in a film. What do you think is the most brutal slasher movie kill? Let us know in the comments below, or weekinhorror@gmail.com. Or, of course, here in the live chat, we'll see what some people come up with, because there's lots of good ones out there. So many good ones.
Yeah, there's some brutal ones.
There's some fucking hard. Yeah, Terrifier comes to mind. There's some
I was fixing to. I figured we'd get some people say from Terrifier 1 and Terrifier 2.
And Terrifier 2, yeah. Oh, Terrifier 2. That one dead.
When you're just like, just let her die already.
Just let her die. Just end it. Just end it. Josh Lee says Human Centipede 2. Enough said. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
put it up
up
there.
there.
Some brutal shit. Holy fuck. See, we haven't got a lot of answers there. Plot hole says, what was the question? What do you think, in your opinion, is the most brutal slasher movie kill? The most brutal slasher movie kill. Name it, like Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, The Burning. Like the Burning had some good ones too, man. The fucking chill. That was fucking rough, man. Ugh. Anything from I Spit on Your Grave or Martyrs.
Yeah. Martyrs.
Fuck yeah. So slasher movie kills, where the slasher has killed somebody. Good stuff. All right, man. We got one more. Let's get super weird.
This is we're gonna end on a weird note tonight.
Let's get super weird.
We are. But I noticed a couple things when I was watching this that I'll bring up, and I'm curious to hear what you think about it.
Okay.
So we're talking about The Hunger, which was released April 29th, 1983. Roll it.
Sarah Roberts is in jeopardy.
Hey, lady. How about it?
Stay with her. Help her. For she has begun to feel the awful horror of The Hunger. John Blaylock. The Hunger has given him everlasting life. Until now, pray for him. Miriam Blaylock. She feeds 1 day in 7 on the unsuspecting. And soon she will turn into something that you will never be able to forget. No matter how hard and how long you try, fear her.
What have you done to me?
Forever and ever.
You feel that tone shift right there?
Signs terminate right here.
What am I going to do?
The timeless beauty of Catherine Deneuve. The cruel elegance of David Bowie. The open sensuality of Susan Sarandon. Combined to create a modern classic of perverse fear. Haunting, mysterious, sensual, strange, perverse, riveting. The Hunger.
All right, that is The Hunger, directed by Tony Scott, starring Catherine Deneuve, David Bowie, and Susan Sarandon. And basically what you have is you have Miriam, who is a vampire and who is basically looking for people to feed upon and also bring into her love life. And I think I'll go ahead and say it. Shit gets weird.
It's very, very odd. Very, very strange. So this was an interesting one. So I love that we have people in the live chat who are recommending read the book first, then watch the movie. And I will absolutely agree with that. So there's a little bit of weird history here. So the film, legendary actress Catherine Deneuve, and of course David Bowie, as he was really breaking into taking on acting roles, and then of course Susan Sarandon, less than 10 years after Rocky Horror Picture Show. And I'll admit it was odd. Susan Sarandon's always been a MILF to me. It's interesting to go back and when I was 3 years old when this movie came out, I was like, fucking Susan Sarandon is like a legitimate sex symbol. It's like, damn. It's like, I was impressed. And then it's like, ooh, Susan Sarandon. You just don't, for me, it's kind of like I grew up, the first movie I ever saw her in was fucking Bull Durham. So, I was kind of surprised by this. But nonetheless, definitely read the book. So the book itself is by a guy named, oh, dang it, I totally forgot his name. His name starts with a W, but I don't want to mess it up. So, Whitley Strieber. So Whitley Strieber wrote a number of novels. He's still a writer, but he wrote a number of novels back in the day. This being one of them, The Hunger being one of them, and The Wolfen being another. Now, we talked about The Wolfen on the show. And I know you remember that about New York City and the Native Americans who helped to build the Man Skyline. And like so, that was a very, very cool movie that we all enjoyed about Native Americans who could take on wolf form and they could defend a particular area from the encroaching development. So it was a very good book, very good movie. This one is also based on one of his novels. Now, this is an interesting little timeline here. So the novel came out in 1981. This movie came out in 1983. So it was adapted very quickly. But before this, before Strieber's novel came out, 1975 saw Anne Rice deliver Interview with the Vampire. So Interview with the Vampire comes out in 1975 and introduces the world to this subgenre of this kind of like vampire subgenre of the I'm dangerous, but in a sexy way kind of thing. And so now we get this, Louis Lestat, and we get this, the romanticized version of these things where we don't really get the monstrous. And Strieber took it built on that and built this story around this centuries-old vampire who never grows old and has eternal life. And every lover she takes, they wind up decomposing. They live forever, but they wind up like aging and decomposing into like this withered husk that she keeps in these little coffins up in her attic. And she has this collection of lovers from the past and how she's moving on to this next girl. And it's intriguing to see Tony Scott take this because Tony Scott, we remember him, Top Gun, Days of Thunder, fucking Beverly Hills Cop 2,
Man on Fire,
all the action shit that he did, and then he kicks his career off with this one, which was weird. And I'm just gonna straight up say it: this movie, The Hunger, is like fucking Terrence Malick does Anne Rice. Because it is all visual. It is visual. It is a sensory experience. It's all visual and audio. But as far as like acting and substance go, it's not really that deep.
It really isn't. And when I was watching this, a certain movie came to mind because if you noticed his cinematography, very harsh lighting, very high contrast, a lot of backlight. The windows are really blown out and you get this real hard hair light. And I was like, I've seen this style before. And you know where I've seen it from? His brother in Blade Runner.
Oh, Ridley. Okay.
Because if you
That's right. Oh, shit. You're right.
Yeah.
Fuck.
So I honestly...
dude, the sequence when he's sitting at the table. When he's sitting at the fucking... Oh, holy shit. I didn't even pick up on that. Holy fuck.
Because Tony probably came by on set, and I don't know the capacity of how much he was involved in Blade Runner, but he had to at least been talking, probably saw an early cut around this time, got the job for this.
All the sequences with Sean Young. He does it with Sean Young in almost every sequence. Holy shit! Oh, you're right. Well, think of that moment when she's sitting there. She's like a battle. She's smoking the cigarette and having that.
Yeah.
Like, yes. Oh fuck! I didn't even put that together because I was thinking Tony Scott and not Ridley. Damn. Okay. Wow. All right. You just blew my fucking mind.
That's why I was saving that for when we talked about it.
Holy shit! I feel like when Alex watched Mother and was completely perplexed by this movie, and when I was telling him, you know what it's about? You know it's about the Garden of Eden, right? It's about God, and Javier Bardem is God, and Jennifer Lawrence is Mother Earth, and that the house itself is essentially, she's like Gaia, and then the house is like Earth itself, and then humanity comes and destroys everything, and then he just restarts the cycle again and again and again. And he was like, yeah, it's just God in creation. It's all it is. Humans show up, they destroy everything, and then he just rebuilds it at the end. I was like, holy idiot. I feel like Alex. My mind is fucking blown. Because now it's like the pieces are like, those pieces go together? What the shit?
I was like 5 minutes in this movie, I was like, yeah. And I was like, maybe let me. And I just watched the scene from Blade Runner, and I was like, This is the same style.
So that's wild. That's wild. I will say that the strengths. Oh, plot hole! You hate everything. Mother was not a terrible film. It's Aronofsky. Come on, dude. Don't even. The thing about The Hunger, and I found really, really interesting, is it didn't feel like this. David Bowie is in this. David Bowie's fucking legendary rock star thing, but the movie itself did not put all this weight of the film on Bowie. As a matter of fact, from an interview, Bowie said he was actually very uncomfortable shooting this movie, which is interesting. The guy who created Ziggy Stardust was a little uncomfortable in this role, considering the fact he's not in the movie that long. He's not. He's in about like maybe a little less than half, and half the time that he's in the film, he's in like super, super old man makeup. So, because he's aging, until eventually he gets put away into a little coffin. But it relies upon the visual appeal, almost like the old Hollywood style, where it's the images of these. Catherine Deneuve is a phenomenally beautiful woman and a legendary actress, extreme, like multifaceted, very, very talented. And yet this movie lingers upon her like a Grecian statue. Okay. And then the same with Susan Sarandon, where we have this more kind of modern image of her, but everything is just, we look at them like they're pictures, like it's literally just art. And then we have even the flashbacks going back when he goes back to ancient Egypt to show her background, show how long she's been around since Egyptian times. Then we look at these elements. Everything is shot with this kind of loving, surrealistic image, just like taking a picture, where the videography or the cinematography is given way more weight than the performances themselves, because everything is pretty. When you take just the performances alone, it's all pretty kind of I would almost say flat. Yeah. Where the real strength comes in how the characters are emoting to what they see. It's not in Susan Sarandon's performances, like what she says in the dialogue, which you realize that this is a vampire and she's infected her. It's in what she says with her face and what she says with her body language. Scott puts so much focus on that. And that's why this comes off in a very surrealistic, almost like dream state, where we're going from one visual feast to the next, where there's a lot to unpack in his cinematography choices, in his color choices, and in his lighting and in his sound. So I found it both really kind of enthralling, to use that word, the vampire's thrall. I found it kind of enthralling, but also a little alien in that respect. Not just they say like Ridley, Ridley's alien, but it was almost like a sense like I was watching something that I was privy to moments that I shouldn't be privy to, which is kind of like, ooh, should I be watching this? And that's a brilliant choice, which I can see why this movie got him selected to work with Simpson and Bruckheimer going forward, because they loved what he did with this. We want that kind of mentality going into our films. And that's where Tony Scott really got his start, was with Top Gun, Days of Thunder, and so on and so forth. So it's an interesting start to Tony Scott's career, where the artist, before he becomes really commercialized, because that's what Bruckheimer and Simpson are all about. Jerry Simpson they're about money. Like Jerry Bruckheimer and Don Simpson, it's all about the money, the spectacle of what you're going to see. Pay us money to have your socks blown off. They took an individual like Tony Scott, who had the real capacity. We're talking, like I said, Terrence Malick style, fucking Tree of Life with vampires is what this was, and then had him take that talent and applied it in this commercial capacity. And I felt terrible after watching this, because I saw I got a sense of what could have been with Tony Scott. And then when the commercial machine quickly grabbed that talent, you're mine. And we're going to use that talent for something that is not really artistic in that respect. And it reminded me very much, because unfortunately we did lose Tony Scott. Tony Scott unfortunately took his own life several years ago, which was a shame. He suffered from depression for a long time, and it was just such an incredible loss. Because you look at, juxtapose this one, check this out: Top Gun, Beverly Hills Cop, all the movies that he did. Right now, look at Man on Fire, and put it up against The Hunger. Now, obviously, two completely different films, but look at the cinematography. Look where Scott went from that visual appeal, all those visual moments with Denzel and Dakota Fanning and Rhoda Mitchell and all the everybody in that one. Look at how he portrayed those things. The colors, the harsh colors, the way he lit stuff. That was almost him coming back to what he used to be. which is why Man on Fire is so fucking brilliant.
And the thing is, and this is what's really interesting about it, is you're right. When you get your style, when let's say you have your dream job, because you're like, okay, I want to be a director, and I've made it. He's made it as a Hollywood director and has worked with some of the biggest names out there. And you go into directing because you want to be an artist, you want to be able to create, and then you get the job and you're not able to create. And it's like you've made it to the top and you can't do what you actually want to do because at the top it's all about dollar signs. Right. So sure, you do Top Gun and you do Days of Thunder and you do so forth and so forth, and you have these big successful films. So Hollywood keeps pressuring you to do that, continue doing this because you're going to keep making money. And what's one of the things I've really noticed about Tony Scott's career is Ridley Scott was able to get a name that separates him from his style. So people would go, oh, that's a Ridley Scott film.
Right.
Growing up, never really got that with Tony Scott. It was never really like, in terms of influential directors, and people talk about Ridley Scott, James Cameron, and so forth, no one really talked about Tony Scott despite the level of films that he's directed. Yeah. It gets lost into this machine. And so I can understand how that can lead to depression and something that you can't get out because you can't do anything else.
That's why it kind of brought me full circle on it. If you look at the themes in The Hunger and you look at Catherine Deneuve's performance and David Bowie's performance, these characters themselves are preoccupied. Even though they will live eternally, they are still preoccupied with death. Is like, even you're a vampire, you're gonna live forever, but still preoccupied with that. You need that substance, you need that purpose, you need something in your life to give that meaning. And the idea of just going on forever kind of eliminates that part on the timeline of everything. You could see where Tony's mind was in how he was portraying these things. And he did it in a beautiful way that was both alien and both inviting and just a completely different world hidden beneath our own. It was a brilliant artistic beginning to a career. And I think, unfortunately, I have to agree with you. With movies like, if you look at Top Gun, Beverly Hills Cop, Days of Thunder, he did The Last Boy Scout, True Romance, Crimson Tide, Enemy of the State, Man on Fire, Deja Vu, and Unstoppable. And so a lot of work with Denzel. But you look at, I think he was slowly trying to make his way back to what his vision was and his idea was. I think that it just was that this movie is an excellent way to see a name that we've associated with action and fast-paced action and explodes and shit like that. Thank you, fucking Michael Bay and Bruckheimer and Don Simpson. An individual who we get to see him before the machine got its claws in him and said, "This is real raw talent. We need to grab this and make use of this." And probably because Ridley was there and he was like, he's Ridley Scott's brother, and Ridley could be like, dude, man, jump on this because this could be the beginning of everything. This could really kick you off. But then he gets lost in that machine. And so there is this kind of melancholy that kind of like influenced how I watched the entire film. And you could feel that throughout every single scene. Catherine Deneuve's performance, David Bowie's performance, realizing that no matter what, it's going to end. And was this ever really mine? Am I just an extension of something else? And the idea, like David Bowie, am I just an extension of the vampire that turned me? The idea of identity. And I loved all of that in this. And I wish that we hadn't lost it.
I wish that he had the freedom to create, because I'm looking at his movies right now, and like you start seeing his style come back in Man on Fire, and then also Domino had a very visual like style experience, and this is probably where he really wanted to go. But when you have two things of no, you just need to be the moneymaker. And the thing is, in that style, like the style of The Hunger and Domino, they're never going to be as big as like the Top Gun action films. They're just not.
Yeah, you can see things kind of pulling him back, like the machine kind of wanted to pull him back with the taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 and the A-Team. Oh, the A-Team he didn't direct, he only produced. But then he did Unstoppable. You could see he started kind of moving in one direction where he could do what he wanted and really apply his own talent to it. Then all of a sudden the machine starts dragging him back in.
Yeah, because I don't know, and somebody can look this up, because I don't think Domino was successful in theaters. I don't think it was. It could have been, but especially if you start to venture out on your own and you start feeling like you have the freedom to kind of really do what you want to do, and you put that out there, and then it's a commercial failure.
Well, I mean, it was such an odd cast. It was Keira Knightley and Mickey Rourke.
I mean,
who sees it's
not
Pride
his
and
best-
Prejudice
it's
and
not his
Harley
best
Davidson?
work.
It's like Pride and Prejudice and Harley Davidson, the Marvel. It was like, what the fuck brought these two together?
It's not his best work. But I'm just saying, from his mental standpoint, where you finally have the freedom to, okay, I want to do what I want to do, and then it becomes a commercial failure. And then what does that do to your psyche?
Right.
Because if you look at Unstoppable goes back to traditional action style film.
True. So sarcasm brings up, so we're not even going to mention the bravery of the lesbian scene in 1983. Even in 1983, that wasn't brave. I mean, films had been exploring that for some time. Susan Sarandon was already after Rocky Horror Picture Show and the film. Susan Sarandon was a sex idol or what do we call what? I don't want to. She wasn't a sex idol, or she was a sexual icon. The independent woman, the fierce independent woman who was not afraid of her sexuality. She had already cultivated that, and then of course Catherine Deneuve, long history of that. So this wasn't seeing these two together wasn't, that, but I don't think was that much of a brave moment. I think it was like, wow, we have two powerful, fiercely independent, strong women who there's no hesitation. Notice that. She was with another guy. She has a husband, and she so quickly falls into this. And it wasn't even like, I have you under my thrall and I'm sleep with me like that. No, she goes with it because that's what she wants. That was the strength of that scene, the strong, independent woman. If you notice, there's a lot of similarities between Susan and Catherine's scene and the scene between Kelly McGillis and Tom Cruise in Top Gun. There's a lot of similarity between those two, the way you can see that there. So, but hey, Flat Derp, good to see you. Tina Jones, good to see you as well. Thanks so much for being here tonight. Clive Wells is here. Good to see you, bud. Thanks so much for popping in. But I love this one. Definitely, if you love vampires, definitely go back and watch it. But yeah, it's kind of a melancholy look back at what could have been with the legendary Tony Scott. I would have loved to have seen him explore this version of himself a hell of a lot more. Although I love the films he produced, he brought that talent to it. Entertaining movies. I love Top Gun, love Days of Thunder, love Beverly Hills Cop 2. I mean, Beverly Hills Cop. I love the Beverly Hills Cop 2 and the fucking Last Boy Scout. Fucking love it. But I wish I could have seen more of who he was. The man on fire, where he gets to bring that. Just think about that. Just the depth of those moments. Those quiet moments. I love that. Hey, Ida Pimp, good to see you as well. Thanks so much for being here. Do appreciate it.
So I want to ask the audience. I know we've talked a lot about Tony Scott, but we also have the great David Bowie, and he has done a lot of film work. And I actually want to ask the audience, what is your favorite David Bowie role? He's been in quite a few movies. He's put in some great performances. What is your favorite David Bowie role?
I have a feeling we're going to get some Zoolander in here.
I figured Zoolander and obviously Labyrinth is going to be
Labyrinth probably as well. I actually will say I loved him as fucking Nikola Tesla in The Prestige.
I was fixing to say The Prestige.
Yes,
yeah.
Fucking Nolan. Nolan captured that dude, man.
There's this elegance that he had that he just brought to the character that was just like.
Do not forget your hat, Mr. Angius. Which hat?
Yeah.
They're all your hats. Fuck yes, Nikola Tesla. Fuck.
Oh, that's such a good movie.
Oh, hell yes. Oh, got some. Oh, look at that. Guess what? The Man Who Fell to Earth. Hell yes. Man Who Fell to Earth. Labyrinth as well. Yes. Dance Magic. Yes, absolutely. Plot hole. Thank you very much. The Goblin King. Jareth, the Goblin King. Absolutely. I always remember that Jareth because I was like, oh, cool, that name. It won't be performance. Cindy Sue. But he had some fantastic ones. I just loved him because when he comes up on screen, it's not like, holy shit, that's David Bowie. It wasn't at first for me. I was kind of like, oh, it's David Bowie. He's like, no, it's Nikola Tesla. Oh, he was played by David Bowie. That's amazing.
That's a sign of good acting because the same way I watched it, I didn't think David Bowie at all until I was like halfway through, and I was like, that is David Bowie.
And I love that entrance when he's coming in and he's got the fucking coils going on. It's electricity burn. It's like it's no worries. It's just electrons, man. It's like I'm like Nikola Tesla, undiscovered God. It's like I fucking loved it. Oh, it's so brilliant. Oh man. Well, definitely let us know what you think is the best. What was David Bowie's best role? Let us know in the comments below, or of course, at weekinhorror@gmail.com. Because remember, Alex does need reading material when he's dealing with the kids. All right. Well, it is about that time. You know what time it is.
It's trivia time.
Thank you, Alex, for giving us that. Absolutely. It is trivia time. So, as usual, here on the Week in Horror, if you were in the live chat, you get the opportunity to win a mystery item from the Week in Horror store. What could it possibly be? If you are the first one in the live chat with the correct answer to tonight's trivia question, you will get a special item from the store. We will print it out and ship it directly to you. Here is your opportunity to get those Google fingers ready. The trivia question tonight is, what was the name of Guillermo del Toro's first American horror film? One more time. What was the name of Guillermo del Toro's first American horror film? First correct answer in the live chat gets a mystery item from the Week in Horror store. Check that out. The link is down below at Teespring. Who's got it? Who's got it? Who's got it?
Let's see. We got some answers coming in, and no, it is not Kronos.
It is not Kronos, Angel Rivera. Sorry about that. Follows his poultry, guys. Give me a fucking break, man. Come on, dude. Who's got the right answer? Let's say it one more time. What was the name of Guillermo del Toro's first American horror film? Maybe a little bit of a trick question, because now people are like, what? What's going on? Come on, who's got it? What? Oh, stop it, plot hole. Come on, give me a break. Bambi Goes Crazy. Wait, with Bonkers was what the fuck? Come on, I know somebody's got this. Is not bad. Come on, this couldn't have been a tough one, right? This couldn't have been hard. So Zeus says Frankenstein. No, not Frankenstein. Nope. This can't be this difficult. Horror film one. Kids Giver said Frankenstein. No. Night of the Living Dead. Nope, that was Romero. Blade 2. Nope, Joshua Lee, but you are close. Pottle says Eugene Goes to Town. What countryside of freaking dead folk? What the fuck? Come on. Oh, wow. This cannot be that hard. Why was it the most unassuming ones are the toughest ones?
It really is.
I try to come up with a really in-depth one that's like, oh, really complex. And they come up with it like in 3 seconds. We see the correct one up. Crimson Peak. No, not correct. Nope, not Blade 1. That wasn't him. That was actually directed by Steve Norrington, who did a magnificent job. Blade is a fucking great movie.
Blade is a fantastic movie. There we go. We got it.
Angel Rivera.
We got it.
Yes,
Cindy Sue. And the answer is Mimic.
Oh, sorry. No, my bad. It was Cindy Sue.
Yes, that's Cindy Sue. That's who I got first.
Cindy Sue. Congratulations. Cindy Sue, you are correct. It was Mimic. Mimic was Guillermo del Toro's first fully American production, and it was produced by Miramax, starring Mira Sorvino, and the first time that del Toro worked with Norman Reedus. So, but yes, that was Mimic. Plothole says, how the fuck is Mimic close to Blade 2? Not in terms of years, in terms of his filmography. What the shit, man?
They both have people in them.
They both have people in them. Because in his filmography, where is it at? I'm sorry. I got to look at this career. Where are his movies? Oh, shit. I can't find his fucking movies. Oh, here we go. Because Mimic was 1997 and Blade 2 was 2002. So it's literally 5 years. It's 5 years. And in between that, he did the Mexican horror, The Devil's Backbone. So it was Kronos was first, was a Mexican production, then Mimic, which was his first American production, and then Devil's Backbone, which was a Mexican American production, then Blade 2, which was back to America. So although they shot in Prague, which was interesting, but Mimic was his first full-on American I hate you sometimes, John. I do, I swear. Why does he... You're lucky you're a great gaffer, man. I swear. I really do.
If it wasn't for your lighting ability.
If it wasn't for your lighting capacity. Eat your whole pretty.
All right. And that will close another episode of the Weekend Horror Podcast. Thank you all so much for joining us. We truly hope you enjoyed this show. And if you did, smash those like and subscribe buttons and be sure to hit that bell so you never miss a future episode. Join us next week when we look back at the cult classic Rutger Hauer action horror split second, the Freaks remake, She-Freak, the 80s Jack the Ripper horror, Jack's Back, and the black comedy slasher, Satan's Little Helper. And be sure to check out Josh Olsen's store at badsamurai.store. He does all the awesome artwork you see splattered all over our merch, which you can find over at Teespring. For more from Weekend Horror, check out that's a tongue twister. For more from Weekend Horror, check out all the bloody links in the description. Follow us on all the socials for the Daily Splatter, your daily horror recommendation. Join our Discord for watch parties, big announcements, and all kinds of horror shenanigans. And support our show through our PayPal link or through our Patreon. Join the higher tiers for early content access and behind-the-scenes fun with the crew, or even just support the show for as little as $1 a month. $1. What are you waiting for? Join us. As always, thank you for being the greatest audience a horror film podcast could have. I'm Eugene.
And I'm JL.
And we'll see you next week. And as always, stay scared.